What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Battlefield 2042 gun guide to bring to you. And episode 3, we are looking at the SFAR-M GL. Now, the SFAR-M GL is quite clearly based on the SCAR battle rifle that's used out in the real world right now. So for all intents and purposes, I am now going to just be calling it the SCAR from now on, just because that is a lot easier for me to be able to say, and it's easier for me to be able to remember. So the SCAR GL that's used in this game has a few magazine attachments. It has less magazine and barrel and kind of attachments compared to other rifles, but it has enough to be able to make it kind of unique. It makes it stand out a little bit. And overall, it's a decent gun. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better than the AK-24, but it is definitely up there. It definitely has the potential to be decent, but it could do with a little bit of a buff in the future. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. Let's get a look into the stats. And as always, we look at the aim down sight time first. Now, this is a 270 millisecond aim down sight, which is completely standard when we've looked at the M5 and we've looked at the AK-24. So we're pretty much experiencing the exact same ADS time. It's pretty much straight across the board. I've yet to test the AT-42. I don't know if this is across the board for every single assault rifle, so once I get that unlocked, I'll let you know about that one in its own separate gun guide. If we go from there to the magazine attachments, now we only have 4 to be able to choose from when it comes to this. So the first mag that you get unlocked with the gun is a high power mag, and this comes with 20 rounds as standard, and this reloads in 2.3 seconds. When we go from there, we also have the standard magazine, and this bumps it up to a nice 30 rounds, and this has a reload time of 2.23 seconds. We also have a drum high power mag, which is very, very nice to be able to equip. It used to be 50, but in the patch that dropped on the 9th of December, it did actually drop it down to 40 rounds now. So that is obviously 40 rounds is very, very nice on this gun, but that clocks in at a 2.93 second reload. And then we also have the armor piercing, which takes it back down to 20 rounds, and that reloads in 2.5 seconds, bang on. If we go from there to the damage profiles, you'll actually notice when it comes to the standard magazine that this is the exact same damage profile as the AK-24. So anything up to 10 meters will do 26 damage. 10 meters to 49 meters will be 22 damage, and then 50 meters onwards will always be 18 damage. What gets really interesting with the SCAR though is that when we put the high power, whether it be the standard magazine or whether it be the drum mag, we are always at every single range dealing 22 damage. Now, this seems quite unique. Every single gun that I've tested in this game has a damage drop off. Even the sniper rifles have some kind of damage drop off, but the SCAR seems to be unique in that fact that whether you're dealing with them up close, whether you're dealing with them at range, you will always be doing that 22 damage. And obviously, if you factor in headshots, the fact that you're taking that time to kill down even more is just really, really nice when we get into it. So we'll talk about the TTK in a second, but just know that because of that unique fact and the fact that high power rounds hold that damage for infinity, means that the SCAR is going to have a very nice time to kill at range, and this is where it kind of gets recommended into what it actually should be used for. If we then have a look at the armor piercing and the damage profile that provides to us, this pretty much is an 18 damage anywhere up to 49 meters, and then drops off to a 15 from 50 meters onwards. So it's kind of that we have very simple damage ranges to be aware of. It's very nice and easy to be able to know when your SCAR is actually dealing what kind of points of damage, and when you need to actually worry about landing that extra shot just to be able to get that kill. If we start putting suppressors on there though, like I said, I'm looking to do a little bit more damage with suppressors, but I am starting to nail down the fact it's consistent across every single gun that I'm starting to test. So if we put this suppressor on the standard magazine, we are dealing 24 damage up to 10 meters. At 10 to 49, we're then doing 20, and then 50 meters onwards, we're doing 17. If we put it on the high power, we are still dealing the same damage at every single range, but instead of doing 22, we're now doing 20, and this does not affect your shots to kill. So the SCAR is actually a decent choice to be able to put a suppressor on if that is the way you want to go. Just know that it will affect your bullet velocity a little bit, but overall, the suppressor does not harm your shots to kill, and this is the first gun that we've come across that being the case. If we then go from there to the suppressor to the armor piercing, we're then doing 17 damage between 0 and 49 meters, and then 50 meters onwards we're now down to 14. So it does affect your time to kill a little bit, but yeah, most of the time I will recommend that you steer clear of the suppressor, but just know that if you use the suppressor combined with the high power, you're not going to be losing out much when it comes to damage or anything like that. The 2 extra points you get from it being unsuppressed is pretty much negligible. There's not going to be a scenario really that you're going to be coming across where that's actually going to make a difference, and it definitely doesn't make a difference when it comes into headshots either. So if we go from there into the rate of fire, and then we can have a look at the time to kill. So when it came to the standard mag that you can put in there, this came out at a very nice 675 rounds per minute. When we started looking at the high powers, so this is the standard mag, the smaller mag, as well as the drum mag, this came out at 635 rounds per minute. So you do lose a little bit in terms of like how fast your gun actually fires when you do put that on. And then when it came to the armor piercing, I think because of this being a slightly smaller mag, it may have been thrown off a little bit, but this actually does go to a 643 rounds per minute when tested in game. So just know that the high power is going to be affecting your time to kill a lot more compared to the standard, but we are looking at around about 40 rounds per minute, so it's kind of negligible. It just kind of helps to space out the shots a little bit, but then this is where it kind of really comes into it. So if we start having a look at the time to kill, the standard magazine up to 10 meters will do it's got a 267 millisecond time to kill, which is kind of on the fast side. It's pretty much there with the AK. It's a couple of milliseconds slightly slow, because the AK does fire around about 680 rounds per minute, whereas the SCAR does fire at 5 rounds per minute slower than that. So technically, if both guns pull the trigger at the exact same time, then the AK would win, just purely based on that couple of milliseconds gap. But pretty much they are the exact same gun when it comes to that range. If we then go from there to the from 11 meters up to 49, we're looking at a 356 millisecond time to kill, which is then still comparable to that of the AK, at least in their standard mag. And then at 50 meters onwards, we're looking at a 444 millisecond time to kill, which once again is comparable to the AK. When we go for the high power, which is most of the way that I kind of run my gun, just because I have that consistency behind me every single time, because it is 5 shots to kill at every single range, with the rounds per minute being 635, it means that at every single range we're dealing through, we'll be killing in 378 milliseconds. Now, if we compare this to the M5 and we compare this to the AK, just know that that is slower in the up close. But when it starts stretching the distance out, so basically from 10 meters onwards, you are starting to then get a bit more comparable when it comes to the time to kill. Most of the time the AK will beat you. It's only really at 50 meters onwards that you actually start seeing that the SCAR has a much better time to kill. So to give you an example, at 50 meters onwards, on the high power mag for the SCAR, we're killing in 378 milliseconds. But when it comes to the AK, depending on the magazine attachment that you go for, either the standard, which is at 441 milliseconds, or the high power at 467, you're still benefiting from that. If we then also compare that to the M5, just to really give you just kind of tie up the whole class. At anywhere after 21 meters, we're looking at 387 milliseconds to kill. So once again, we're pretty much around the same kind of like time scale there. And then 50 meters onward, we'll drop it all the way down to 465. So the SCAR really does better shine and really does benefit at those longer distances. What doesn't necessarily help in that kind of case is the recoil plot. The recoil on the SCAR feels heavy, and it always pulls up and to the right, similar to how the M5 is. So you can get away if you have practiced the M5 a lot. You can actually get away with the SCAR in that kind of sense. It just feels like a heavier gun, but you are better at tap shooting at longer distances to be able to get that kill, to be able to get that better TTK compared to all the other rifles, and you really will benefit from the faster bullet velocity, from the ease of the bullets being able to reach and touch out at those distances. If we then have a look at the armor piercing, just to really wrap this up, because of the lower damage profile, we're looking at a 373 milliseconds, 467 milliseconds, and a 560 milliseconds. So I would highly recommend that you steer clear from the armor piercing when it comes to regular battles. Most of the times you're not really going to get any kind of benefit from using the armor piercing, from what my playtesting in Battlefield. So it doesn't feel like you'd actually need to be able to take this out with you. When it comes to the suppressors though, and the real key thing to be able to take from this is that it does affect your up close time to kill with the standard rounds, because it does affect your time to kill, shots to kill from 4 to 5, so therefore you are killing at 356, so it makes it a bit more consistent. So basically you have 1 damage drop off really for the first 49 meters, and then after that it drops off to 444 milliseconds. Coming to the armor piercing, this is just abysmal because it drops off all the way to 467 milliseconds and 653 milliseconds. But the real shine here is the fact that suppressed high power is still 378 milliseconds, and that will keep you off the radar. So you know, you definitely have that option available to you there. It's really quite nice to be able to not have to worry about the suppressor damaging your gun in that kind of sense. So the last thing really for us to be able to cover before we go into like sights and attachments and how it affects your aim down sight would be the barrels that come with the SCAR. So we have 2 barrels to choose from, so we don't have a short barrel when it comes to this gun, similar to the AK. So we have a standard and we have a long barrel. Now the standard was, the testing that was done for this was purely based on the standard magazine as well, so the 30 rounds. And this came to rounds per minute of 675, as we talked about before, and the bullet velocity was 740 meters per second. When it comes to putting the long barrel on there, we are dropping our rate per our rounds per minute down to 626, so we are losing around about 7 to 8% on our rounds per minute, so not too bad in that kind of department, but we are gaining our bullet velocity all the way up to 870 meters per second, and that means that we're gaining around about 17.5% kind of boost in that kind of respect as well. I did actually test this with the high power, because I like to do a little bit with the high power. I primarily rock my SCAR with the high power rounds, and the high power clocked in at 870 meters velocity as standard. This was unaffected by the suppressor as well, but what really made this just absolutely ludicrous was the fact that if I use high power, combine it with the long barrel, my bullet velocity goes all the way up to 1,111 meters per second, which is a crazy bonus, and that really means that you can reach out, you can touch some people with these bullets. You can almost turn this into a kind of like a slightly weaker DMR with a much bigger magazine and the chance to be able to go full auto. The fact that it's not going to affect your actual rounds per minute in a massive way really does mean that the long barrel is a very good choice when it comes to the SCAR, and the fact that you've got the damage profile that means you can reach all the way out to infinity on the map and still be dealing the exact same amount of damage really does cater to that long barrel playstyle as well. So overall, the long barrel is definitely not a bad choice if you're using the high power rounds when it comes to this game. And then just to briefly touch on the sights, so obviously we've got the standard ones that we're all kind of gearing ourselves towards. So the irons and basically anything that goes up to a 2x magnification is the standard 270. The only ones that outlie there, the only ones that are different would be the UH1 Smart, which adds 50 milliseconds onto your aim down sights time, which brings it up to 320. We have the Bravo 3X, which brings it up to 330. We have the M22 3.5X, which brings it up to 350. We have the Raven 4X, which brings it up to 330 as well, which was quite interesting, the fact that the 3.5X had a more kind of a penalty to your aim down sights compared to the 4X, but hey ho. And then the M11 6X brings it up to 370, so not a harsh penalty compared to all the others, but it's still one that's going to really slow down the gun, and it's going to feel like an age. So I would recommend that you stay away from that, but it's definitely worth taking some of those longer optics out with you, especially when we consider what we know about the high power and the long barrel. So I take out a 2X with me just because I like the comfort of knowing that I can tackle closer up kind of enemies as well as being able to reach out, but you can definitely get away with a nice 3 or 3.5X, I would suggest as well. And there you have it. That's pretty much every single stat that we could think of for the SCAR. And overall, I like the SCAR. I've always been a SCAR fan in like previous Battlefield iterations, or also in Call of Duty as well. I love how the gun looks. I love how it performs in the majority of games that it's ever been put into. So the fact that it's been brought back for Battlefield 2042 is an absolute godsend. It pleases me to be able to no end. The only thing I would say is that while it is unique, that it is able to reach out and it is able to pretty much 5-shot kill anyone at any range, it just feels like the majority of gunfights, it feels very slow, it feels very clunky, it's very unforgiving, especially with that lower rate of fire, but everyone's pretty much gravitated towards the AK-24, and I can kind of understand why, because you're able to have a grip instead of being kind of stuck to a grenade launcher, but I'd like to see the SCAR get some kind of buff in the near future, just something just to really help it out. And I miss the fact that the drum mag actually held 50 rounds. The fact it's been dropped down to 40, while I do understand, I also thought the 50 round one was quite unique in that kind of sense, and I really hope that does make some kind of return in the future. If there's any kind of updates and you're watching these gun guides like a month or two, or maybe even longer down the road, if there's any kind of updates in the patches, we will make sure to pin a comment in the comment section down below. So if there's any changes whatsoever, we'll keep you up to date there. So make sure you head yourself down there. But that's pretty much wraps it up. So let us know in the comment section down below, what do you think of the SCAR? Is this a gun that you've rocked yourself? Is this something that you enjoy? If you don't, let us know the reasons why, and let's have a little bit of a friendly discussion over there. As always, thank you so much to the Babylonian family. They really do help us out massively with their donations. So if you want to become part of that and get your name at the end of every single one of our videos, all you need to do is find that join button that's found right next to the subscribe button, which you should have clicked on, by the way, let's be honest. It is literally as simple as 99p a month, and it really does help the channel out. Every single penny of that goes straight back into the channel, and it really just helps us be able to run competitions, or be able to help buy things to be able to help with the content on the channel. So massive thank you to all of you, and massive thanks to everyone that's stayed this far into the video. It just leaves me to say thank you so much, keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I'll see you all on that next video.